So you want to collect video games, huh? Well, you might have second thoughts after this list.
That's what I expected.
What's going on, my pack rats? You guys are joining me today for a super fun episode. We are talking today about reasons not to collect video games.
Don't.
I wasn't.
Perfect. Don't.
Now, I am doing this for fun. I rarely get to play devil's advocate as I have been a video game collector for a while now, but I thought it would be really interesting to go over my feelings about video game collecting and the reasons maybe not to start collecting video games. But before we get into that, first I have to say a big shout out to the Dirty Game Room. I picked this merch up recently. Mark over there, check his channel out, guys. If you want some crazy, absurd content, super funny, off the wall, just goofy stuff, Mark is there for you. That guy creates entertaining videos and he posts them like every 3 days. So go over, check out the Dirty Game Room, tell him Pac-Man K sent you, and let's get into this video. All right, so the first thing, above all, probably the most difficult thing right now in video game collecting is how expensive video games are. Good God, this stuff has skyrocketed in price. The inflation on video games is absolutely insane right now. An example, Paper Mario about 4 months ago was going for around $30 to $40. It is now up to the $120, $130 range, which is insane for it to be jumping up that much. If you are getting into video game collecting right now, it is the most terrible time to get into this collection. It being expensive and video games not being attainable is a huge reason right now. We've got a very, very heavy reseller market. That market is eating up any of the deals that you might find and obviously inflating those prices as they're gobbling up all the good stuff, throwing that stuff online, and you are paying retail price for that collection. So I would say if you are trying to collect right now, hold off on it, let things settle just a little bit because it is expensive as hell, my friends. Listen to these words. It is pricey. Another huge reason not to be a video game collector is the amount of space that these sons of bitches take up. I mean, right now, guys, I've got a friggin' wall full of video games. This is, I want to say I think it's like 13 or 14 shelves. That's just to house my PlayStation, Nintendo, and some Xbox stuff. And even that's not enough room. The amount of space that video game collecting, especially if you want to be a large video game collector, you need space. Your Sega Saturn discs and cases are huge. Your clamshells for your Genesis stuff is big. Even just a DVD case, its size takes up a significant amount of space to store it on a shelf. With these IKEA shelves behind me, which a lot of people ask what they are, these are the IKEA Gendby or Nedby, I don't know how it's pronounced. I'll put a link in the description below for the shelves. But they only hold about 10 DVDs across and they go roughly about 8 down. So that doesn't give me a whole lot per shelf. There are a little bit of different ways to organize stuff, but no matter what, you guys can go into any YouTuber, check out their video game collection, and you'll notice they're double stacking stuff. Their collection consists large statues or large joysticks or huge collector's items, and these things are just very difficult to display. So if you got the room and the space, more power to you. But I guarantee you, if you're trying to collect right now in 2020, you are going to need a large space to put all of your stuff and possibly save your relationship. Playing devil's advocate still here, guys. Another reason not to be a video game collector is over collecting. And what that means is when you are grabbing every single thing that you can possibly see that's video game related. That means thrift store finds, retro video game stores, Best Buy or a Target or whatever, and all of a sudden you end up with so much stuff, you're not even playing video games anymore. You just have things around you. And as you over-collect, you over-clutter, you get disorganized, it basically moves into straight hoarder status. And if you are going to be a video game collector, you will get into over-collecting. You will end up finding stuff or wanting stuff that doesn't necessarily have value to you, that just eats up the time and space around you. So you're snagging that game that's on sale at Target for just, I don't know, for whatever reason. You just get excited for a video game, you pick it up, you add stuff to each various collection and platform, and before you know it, you just have a bunch of stuff that might not even matter to you. So over collecting is a huge trap you can fall into by video game collecting. So another reason to maybe stay away from this hobby. All right, guys, still having fun, right? We want to talk about you being smart about our video game collecting habits, but another thing and another reason why I don't suggest you get in this hobby is the absolute chaos that it can cause. And when I say that, I mean you end up with piles and piles and basically hoarding things that just don't really have a place in your collection. That chaos continues to grow. It moves outside of your game room or outside of the space that you're collecting your video games as you organize. Maybe it's the kitchen table, maybe it's next to the front door, maybe it's in a spare bedroom, but before you know it, the chaos just blows up and video game collecting sometimes starts to eat into other parts of your house, even your car. I know I have seen many video game collectors' vehicles and they just have stuff stored in their back seat and their passenger side seat. It's basically anywhere but your game room, and it's because you just have too much stuff to be able to organize. So that is another thing. Complete chaos can overwhelm you if you are trying to be a big video game collector. So think about that stuff before you guys jump into it. That is definitely a suggestion I have, is try to avoid the chaos. So this next one hits home for me on a reason that I wish that I would have really thought about before I got into video game collecting and amassed such a large collection. There is a consequence to having a large game collection, and it's actually kind of sad. So this consequence is that your passion for video games diminishes over time as you build the collection. Now let me explain what that means. So here's a perfect example. When you are going to a restaurant or you're going out to eat and you have a menu that's placed in front of you, let's say this menu has 200 different items on it. You are easily overwhelmed by your choice and your selection, and in turn causes you to be unsatisfied with what you chose. That is no different with video games. The more games you collect, the more you amass, you actually diminish your passion and love for the games you might have previously had. So let's say when I was younger, I had 5 Super Nintendo games, and those Super Nintendo games meant the world to me. I loved Star Fox, I loved Mario, I loved Metroid. I had a blast playing that stuff. Well, now that I have 200 Nintendo games, those have all lost emotional value that I used to care about. So it's not to say I don't still have fond memories of those games, but as I go over to my wall of games and I make a decision, I don't have a humble 5 or 10 that I have value and that I'm excited for. I don't have a respect, if you will, for the games that I have for that system. They're just another notch on the belt. And that actually ends up being a huge problem. And don't let any video game collector tell you differently. It happens to everybody. As you build a larger collection, the games that you normally would have cared about in a smaller, more humble collection, they just lose their significance. And it's a very sad consequence of having a large game collection. So do not collect video games in 2020. You listen to Pack Daddy. You listen. This next one actually coincides with some of the other ones that I'm bringing up today, guys. Another one is the addiction, and this is real. People are addicted to so many other things. Video game collecting can be an absolute crazy addiction. And again, what I mean by that is we already talked that you will buy everything. You'll grab as much as you possibly can anytime you find a video game. But then it becomes a little bit more than that. You have to buy that video game. That game is only worth maybe $8 or $9, and it's not even that great of a game, but you don't see it very often, so it's uncommon. So you end up grabbing it anyway, and then you start to snowball and make decisions like that on your video game collection all the time. You end up spending sometimes too much money. You regret what you are buying, which in turn is always difficult if you're trying to flip that stuff over to make some cost on it, especially if you didn't make a smart decision. So my friend Retro Rick, he has a great series right now at the $10 game challenge, and he is a perfect example of how he makes his decisions when he purchases these games. So there'll be a $4 game there that he'll pass on, but if it was $2, he might pick up. It's a smart move because he's using it to flip to get the games that he wants. But with an addiction, you would probably pick up that $4 or $6 game just because you want to add games to your collection. So it's just about being smart about it. It's another reason that video game collecting sometimes can be an absolute bitch, is that addiction will get you. So just be cautious. If you guys decide to get into it, it's something to think about. Another valid reason not to collect video games, it is time consuming. It will eat up so much of your damn time for you to go out and find your deals, for you to get bundles, for you to search marketplace ads, for you to jump on any app that might have deals. All of that takes time to search for. And what that means is it actually takes time away from your ability to play video games. So when I say video game collector, I mean that is your main goal, is to collect the video games. And when you do that, you don't really play the video games. And what happens when you fall into that trap is that you lose a lot of time. You lose a lot of time searching for video games. You lose a lot of time teaching yourself and learning about video games that you never really pop one in and sit down and enjoy the experience of playing. So it is a terrible consequence of being a big video game collector, and it is something that I definitely warn you guys on, is that it will eat up a lot of your time. It takes time to go to the thrift store. It takes time to go to the retro game store. It takes time to, canvas garage sales. That is all time that you can spend playing the video games if you were to keep more of a humble collection. So, not saying, again, guys, on this video, I am just playing devil's advocate. I am guilty of all of these things, and I also enjoy it at the same time, which is why I continue to do it. But if it is something you are not ready for, then video game collecting is probably not right for you. I said it. Let's keep going. Okay, so here's another fun one that I see happen a lot to video game collectors. And what happens is video game collectors at one point or another turn into a reseller. And this is another reason not to get into video game collecting, because for two reasons. Number one, you have to fund the habit. It is really easy to get really deep into the cost, especially right now. As I told you guys, video games are expensive. It's very easy to get caught into the trap of collecting video games when you know that you're spending too much on them. So what that means, though, is that as you start to take your collection and turn yourself more into a seller of video games, you start to focus on the price of the game over what the value of it would be to you. So let me explain that one a little bit more. I have a collection app where I catalog all of my video games. And unfortunately, I have found myself sometimes coming into my game room and I'm looking at my app and I literally just focus on what my collection is worth. And I'm gonna tell you guys for the first time what I have in this collection. I am sitting on roughly about $50,000 in video games in this collection. The one reason why I know that number is because I have made it a priority to look at what the value of my collection is. Now, the reason why I think that is a bad habit to get into is that you start to collect video games based on their price alone and not based on their quality or their value to you as a gamer. It makes sense why people who resell do that, but it does take you away from being a video gamer, from being a video game player. You are no longer that. You are literally looking for monetary value in these games just so that you can make a buck, or just so that you can be proud of the cost of everything in your game room. And it is a slippery slope. For you to go down that one, you really lose why these video games are made in the first place, and it's for entertainment purposes. So it's why we do it. We want to play video games because they're fun and it takes you out into an experience of leaving the real world for a little bit and enjoying stuff. But it's really easy when you become a big collector to focus on what the value is, monetary value of your collection. And I do think that it is damaging to your satisfaction and overall fulfillment of the video games that you have already. So that's it. That is definitely one that I think is a huge reason to stay away from video game collecting, because it is easy to fall into that. A couple more here. Let's keep going. Got to get a little Dr. Andy on you here. The next one here, guys, is it's part of the human condition. It's just who we are, but we see a lot of amazing things with social media. So what that means is it's very easy for you to see a YouTuber, see how big their collection is. We watch some of these giant YouTube channels and it shows all of these people with these amazing game collections, and it shows some rarities and things that you want in your collection. And what happens to you is you get jealous or you get envious of the collections that you see. Now, it might not hit you right away, but really what's driving you to collect is you are comparing yourself to these other video game collectors. And the problem with that is you are actually taking what their passion is, the games they're excited for, the games they have on their shelves, and you want to be that person. You want to have that large video game collection. You want to be able to be proficient in speaking about the games that are around you, but it might not be you. So it's a perfect example of why you shouldn't collect video games. You are gonna be jealous, you're gonna be envious, you're gonna see some of the largest collections that you've ever seen, and you're gonna want that, and in attaining that, you'll lose the reason why you played video games in the first place. So, in seeing all of these massive collections, it tends to kind of consume what you think a video game collection should be. I've definitely gone down that road before. I've seen collections, been like, I want that, I want to make my room like that, and it's taken me a really long time to finally get to a spot where I am collecting for me. I am collecting the things I want to collect for, and I am not trying to copy my friends or other YouTubers or people's stuff that I see. I truly want to collect this stuff because it matters to me, versus I want it just so that I can look like that other person. So you guys get it. It's a common human condition. It is what it is. The jealousy and the envy, it will come along with game collecting. So just another one. I'm just being real. This is Pac-Man Case being real with you guys. All right, guys, this is the last one that I have, and I believe that this one is also very important. No pun intended. If you become a video game collector to collect all the video games in the world, there's no end game. Literally, in video game collecting, there's always going to be a new system, a new game, a new definitive edition, a new iteration, a new special edition. These are things that it is truly impossible to just collect all of them. So it's easy for you to see someone like The Last Gamer. He has a huge video game collection, and he truly has built a phenomenal piece of art, like with how much stuff that he has. But the reality situation is that is not us, and there is no end game to us continuing to collect for the rest of our lives. So make a decision on what you want to collect now. If you want to be a retro collector, just collect for those retro stuff. If you like modern gaming, just do that. If you like a combination of both, again, collect at a reasonable pace. But if your goal is to get every single video game ever created, you'll never do it. There's no end game. It'll eat your soul. You'll be absolutely frustrated by it. So that is another reason, guys, is if there's no end goal, what is your point? You need to make sure that you have some type of small finish line so that when you are there, you might stumble upon something outside of that collection, which is fun to find, but you're not always on the hunt for something to add to your collection that you won't truly play. We don't have all the time in the world, right? It sounds really easy to say, I have a bunch of time to play these later, but reality is you probably won't. So if you are trying to collect every game in the world, understand it's not going to happen, and kind of reel back those expectations. That's it. So guys, this was me having fun. I am playing devil's advocate because I am a video game collector, and there are many things that I do on that list, or many things that also frustrate me. But in lieu of those things, I still collect video games, and I try to do it smart. So what I wanted to wrap this up with was a YouTube video I watched, I want to say about 3 years ago, which has always hit for me, and I can't remember it. If I find it in the link, I will link it in the description. But it basically is about a collector discussing his collection 1.0 to 3.0. And what that is when you had your very first video game collection when you were younger. That was your childhood memories. That was the 10 games, the 5 games, the 2 games you had for a couple systems, and you loved those games. You thought those were awesome. Then you changed to collection 2.0, which was where you were a grown adult, you had all the money that you could think of, or at least money to spend, to gather all the video games you possibly could. And originally it happened because you're like, I never got to play that as a kid, I'd like to build a collection. But then it snowballed into a massive collection of things that don't mean anything to you, like NHL 98 on the Sega Saturn means nothing to me, but it's sitting on my shelf. That is stuff like collection 2.0. That's what would fit into that bucket. Lastly is collection 3.0 that I'm working on right now, and that is paring this stuff down, getting rid of the fluff, getting rid of the clutter, and keeping the things that truly bring me joy. Keeping the things that you truly have a passion for is very hard. I know I've gone through 3, 4, 5 runs of trying to pare things down, and I still keep things on the shelf. But collection 3.0 is where you guys want to get if you're truly getting into video game collecting, and it is a step-by-step process. So you probably are going to have to get through your collection 2.0 of buying too much stuff before you make that decision. But once you get there is when the hobby really becomes fun, and it becomes something that matters to you on the shelf. You can pull a game out, and every single one will give you value. It will bring you joy. So that's it. That's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Those were reasons not to collect video games, especially in 2020, and I hope you guys found some value out of it or able to change your tact going forward to help yourselves out. If you guys like what I got going on, you like my silly content, please hit that subscribe button. Guys, we are super close. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers. That is absolutely insane to me. I never thought in a million years I would hit it. It means the world to me if you guys will hit that sub button, if you found value in this video, and if you like me to make more of this stuff, I'm always there for you. So, Pac-Man Case signing out. Appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you on the flip side. Later.